Hi everyone. I'm Lauri, as Luis said, and I'm here from Mesente. Mesente, essentially, just to give you a rough overview of who we are and what we do, is basically a messaging platform for businesses, for business-critical notifications. So to give you an example, we're the guys that deliver the messages from banks when someone wires you money and the bank wants to give you a quick heads up. We're the guys who deliver messages from restaurants when your booking has been confirmed, from your doctor as an appointment, a reminder, and stuff like this. So, as also Luis mentioned, these transactions that we deliver, our platform delivers about between 1 and 2 million of them per day. And these notifications we send to Europe, to Latin America, to Southeast Asia, and we work with mostly companies that operate on 3 to 5 markets. So basically, I'm from the telecommunications industry, and I'm a salesman at heart, and hence today's topic, which is about sales. We've come from 0 to where we are currently, which is company-wise at the very doorstep of having 8-digit annual revenue carried almost only by enterprise sales. We've done very little marketing. Whether that has been a wise decision is another topic, but this is our current reality. And that's why the next 15 minutes or so is going to be about sales, things that we've picked up on our journey, things that I've personally picked up on my 20-year salesman career in the telecom sector and in tech. And I want to be very practical about this because, people who talk about sales instruct others in sales usually talk in slogans. And that really doesn't give much value, does it? But before I dig into all of this, I wanted to explain why I'm talking about sales at a startup conference. Because I might be wrong, but I'm the only person here having a sales-related presentation. And I think that these days, startups, especially business-to-business startups, for them sales is something that it's very easy to overlook. I mean, after all, we live on the era of building something new and exciting. It's a very product-centric view of things. We're talking about customer acquisition funnels, customer acquisition. The border between sales and marketing is growing more hazy by the day. But I think there's a lot of value in sales in general, in the kind of perhaps even the old-fashioned way of doing it, especially if you're a business-to-business startup, especially if you're early on. So we hear things about, good products sell themselves. We hear things like Estonians are not very good at this anyway. And if you talk to some of the angel investors of VCs, you might even hear sales doesn't scale. It's very hard to scale a sales operation from 0 to world domination. And my opinion is nothing sells itself. That's for one. Estonians are kind of good at it anyway. And thirdly, I might even agree with the scaling part to some extent. But again, if your next milestone is achieving sales revenue less than 10 million per year, I guarantee you it scales like hell. So the money that comes from your clients is the sweetest form of cash there is. It's for the value you've already created. The money that comes from investors, as necessary as it might be, is in the hope that you'll create value in the future. Sales validates you. It validates your company, it validates your product, it validates your team, so use this early on. It's not about asking your customers what would they want you to build next. It's about what would they pay for, and this is what your roadmap should be based on. So let's dig into this. A few things we think we've picked up, and the things we religiously follow in Mesenta's sales team. Create win-win situations. Pretty sloganish, isn't it, actually? So, and kind of obvious as well. But for me, there's a rookie level to it, and there's a more pro level to it. The rookie level would be, if I deliver, if my product does what it was supposed to do, then it's kind of a win-win, right? If you operate with assumptions, you assume that you create value. I'll give you some of or use any of the sales cliches, for example. CEOs are very busy, is one I hear very often. Sure, CEOs are very busy if you have to approach them, but busy is a matter of priority. And if you're stuck with busy, then your sales guy doesn't have priority, so deal with that. The client of ours just raised a huge round, so they have a lot of cash, let's sell to them. Yeah, but for what, right? They have to deliver the next milestone for that cash, and you might not be part of that next milestone. So don't assume, don't operate with cliches, go as granular as you can. First of all, ask yourself this: can I run my client's business? Do I know enough of what his pains are, what his make or break aspects of his business are? And odds are you can't. I mean, you definitely can't. But I think it pays to ask yourself this question every now and then to see if you know enough of context. What are the top things on this person's mind right now, this week, today, yesterday? What is he or she losing sleep over? And this, again, is something that you can never surely know. But even if your product is not part of solving these things, it pays to know. So try to be as granular and never assume you're creating value. Ask, go into details, try to put yourself in this person's shoes. The more granular you go with this, the more relevant you can be. Second thing that we've kind of picked up, and this one is a bit controversial. So don't automate sales communication, at least. Or at least don't do it early on. What I've seen, and this is based on what I've seen in many startups, I think it starts from this notion of sales doesn't scale. So, and it's a game of numbers. That's what you hear, right? So sales is a game of numbers. So let's put more in. Let's buy lists of industry contacts and skip the research part. Let's use one of the thousands of tools out there for email automation and automate our follow-ups. Let's do this and this and this. It helps us to do more. Because it's a game of numbers, right? And it's a vicious circle that leads to you kind of alienating from the conversations that you have with your customers, at least bits of it. And this leads to lower conversions, which leads to you wanting to put more in, which leads to alienating more, and the vicious circle goes on and on. The fundamental problem that I always have, and I try to talk about this to early stage startups as well, who are in business to business, is that the problem I have with this sales is a game of numbers thing is that it implies that every problem can be solved if you put more in. And that's kind of true. But I think it pays every now and then, if you don't get the results out of sales that you wish for, simply do less. Have more human interactions and less funnels. And this kind of and solve the quality part, not the quantity part. So this has led to, in Mesente, the kind of like a thing we have, that we put a cap on how many parallel conversations any single salesperson can have in sales, and that cap is 20. So it might be different depending on, you know, how complex are your conversations, but it solves the quality part of sales. So don't do more, do less, sometimes at least. Third thing, what's happening on the other side? This is less of a principle and more of a method that we use. It pays to every now and then ask yourself, what is exactly right now happening on the other end of this conversation? I'll give you a few examples, just some mind exercises that you could do. So you had this sales call. What happens in the 3 minutes after you walk out of the room or hang up the phone? Does the person that you met, does he call someone to say that, you know, these guys were pretty awesome, let's hear what they have to say? Do you get filed into the back of his head into some file cabinet that says, maybe later? What happens? Did he prepare for that meeting? For how long? How? Is that important for him? Was that important? Or did he just show up? Why? So asking these things gets you more of a contextual understanding of what it is they were looking for, and if a sales lead that you were very hopeful goes silent at one point, you can ask, why did they agree to the first meeting in the first place? Not why are they not responding to my emails right now? What was it that they were hoping for and never got? So what's happening on the other side, always? It's not about fancy closing techniques. Sales is never about fancy closing techniques. The more complex your deals, the bigger the bill size, the less. If you're in business to business, it is never about fancy closing techniques. A full introvert with a solid method beats an extrovert working the room, spreading pixie dust and doing fancy closes every day of the week. I think basically the things that we say to our salespeople very often when we kind of try to spread certain values in the team is that it all boils down to two things if you're doing sales. Keep your promises religiously. Never be late. It starts with the small stuff. But if you promise to get back to someone, do it exactly at the time. And you know, because the way you sell or the way your client is buying is a pretty accurate image of what the relationship is going to be after this contract is signed or whatever is the method of closing in your way. So keep your promises and always do your homework. In Mesente, salespeople spend at least twice the time compared to what the sales meeting lasts on preparing it. So if you start out in sales, if your salespeople that you hire say that I'm that good, so I can simply show up and do my thing, that in sales is a rookie move. So do your homework. And there's this thing I wrote, I think, a year ago. It's a LinkedIn post that got a lot of feedback, and it was about selling me this pen. I think, do you know the movie, The Wolf of Wall Street, right? Leonardo DiCaprio handing someone a pen and say, you know, sell me this pen. I thought this was a movie thing until I saw it done a couple of times at interviews when someone recruited for salespeople. If you recruit for salespeople, please don't. Because it kind of projects that, you know, sales is a complex thing. It's about processes, it's about, you know, who does what, it's about, as I said, you know, homework, keeping your promises. Sales is a method. It's much more of a science than it is an art. and it shows lack of understanding. If you're ever applying for a sales job and someone says, "Sell me this pen," there's only one right reaction to it. Sell him this pen, he's the boss. Do your best at doing this, but know that this person's understanding of sales as a complex process in the company perhaps might come from watching this movie one too many times. And the last thing I wanted to touch upon is I've been asked a lot of times, who should I hire? I want to hire a sales team. Who should I go for? What are the qualities? And I've looked at this, very differently, and the thing I always come back to is hire the entrepreneur. The thing it kind of boils down to. For me, the entrepreneurial mindset pretty accurately matches the mindset or the profile of a really good business-to-business salesperson. And they spot opportunities. They understand that when there's a problem, it should be fixed and not complained about. And they are aware that it's a grind, and a grind it is. And if you're ever between two kind of equal skill set salespeople, my advice to you would be hire the better writer. This is what I try to do. I profoundly believe that a clear writing is a sign of a clear and structured mind, and vice versa. So if you hire salespeople, read what they have written in the past, read what they write for you, instead of asking them to sell you this pen. Odds are, it's your pen anyway. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lauri. I like it. We have just a few minutes there. Okay, so very quickly, what do you think motivates a sales team? Is it just commission?
I think if commission motivates a sales team, it's a very, this is definitely has to be in the equation.
Sure.
Salespeople have to be after the money. On the other hand, I think the usual things as well. Getting enough support, and I think patience. And patience is hard to come by as a quality in sales managers. But patience in the long run pays off, I think. If you're sure about, about your hiring method, and you believe in this person, but he doesn't perform right now. So I think that this quality is extremely hard to kind of get it right if you're a sales manager. But if you can have patience, then patience pays off in terms of loyalty, in terms of later results.
That makes a lot of sense. In the last 6 months, we hired a sales manager at Comedy Estonia, and I would say that is something I've learned. Let them do their thing. I was like, where's the sales? Come on, it's been 3 weeks. I want to see the money rolling in. And then you go like, no, you've hired who you believe is a good person who knows what the hell they're doing. Get out of their way, let them do it.
There is a balance to it, though. And this balance is the art in the sales managing. But yeah, there's patience, I think.
Now, if you don't know, Lauri, one of the many fine things that he's done in his life, he was one of the co-founders, I believe, of the bar Mörku downtown. You co-founder? Co-founder?
Yeah, if you're a bar, then there's no co-founders. There's just few guys. If you have a startup, then you have fancy stuff like co-founders.
Okay, guys who are one of the guys getting together who created Mörku you might remember its old location on Rutli. What did you learn in terms of sales from selling beer to drunk university students and stupid comedians?
Good times, right?
Yeah, very good times. Mörku was the place that the very first stand-up comedy show in Estonia ever happened. The open mic with Stuart, Eric, and Andre down there. I wasn't there for that one.
Yeah.
That was the very first stand-up comedy in Estonia happened in this man's bar. So
I think what we learned is perhaps one of the things is that your sales price, the sales price of your product, should always be based on the value that it generates, and not be the sum of your cost components.
Okay.
Not sure if it's a sales thing, but yeah.
That makes sense. I think at Comedy Estonia, we think about it that way as well. That's why our tickets are always as low as we can make them. It's not just about how high can that ticket go, but it's how much will the customer pay for that ticket? And do I want to charge a high ticket price now? Maybe they will pay for that, but they might not come back next month. They might, if I have a higher ticket price, maybe they're only going to come back every 3 months. But what if I want them to come back every month or every week? You know, if I put a better price, I might actually get them coming back more and more.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Very good. Lauri, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you.